Today my topic to discuss is managing absenteeism, nursing turnover, and retaining staff. So what do all those words mean? Absenteeism is how it sounds, from being absent at work. This could be not showing up by choice or because something comes out of the employee's control. Closely related to absenteeism is employee turnover, the number of staff members who vacate a position. Retaining staff is maintaining the employees that are employed. There are numerous factors that affect this that we will discuss later on. Let's start with absenteeism. Now there are two types. The first one is voluntary. This is something that's under the employee's control or by personal choice. The book gives us an example of an employee who chose to stay home from work to work on their income taxes. The other kind is involuntary. This is outside of the employee's control and not by choice. An example of this would be food poisoning. Although this distinction seems reasonable in theory, in practice it is often difficult to distinguish these two categories because of a lack of accurate information. Few employees will admit to abusing sick leave. There are also a few attendance barriers that could affect this, including personal injury or illness, family responsibilities, and transportation problems. Let's talk about a few causes of absenteeism. First is the job itself, enriched versus mundane jobs. Employees with more enriched jobs may increase motivation to attend because they believe what they are doing is important and others depend on them. Those with mundane jobs may have more sick days. Organizational practices. Some healthcare organizations have absence control policies that reward employees for good attendance and or punish them for excessive absenteeism. To decrease absenteeism, the organization could also provide child care and wellness programs. Absenteeism is also affected in the way the unit tolerates it. If it is tolerated, employees will have more sick days. If it is frowned upon, employees will have less sick days. There are also generational differences. Younger nurses expect to have flexible scheduling and may use absenteeism to achieve it. Younger generations also expect independence and a part in decision making. The labor market also affects this. If there are many other jobs available in the market, a nurse will be less motivated to attend work. They will have the thinking that if they get fired, they can easily find another job. Personal characteristics also affect this. This could be the employee's attitude towards the job, whether they want to show up or not, job satisfaction, if they are happy with their job, and their work ethics. Now let's talk about staff turnover. High turnover is troubling for many reasons, including decreased continuity of care for residents and the additional costs associated with recruitment and training. Reducing turnover begins with recruiting and selection and continues with motivation and development of staff. We don't always know the real reason as to why employees chose to leave because they are not always honest on an exit interview. Sometimes a survey in the mail is an easier way for an employee to be honest about why they chose to leave. There are also two types of turnover, voluntary and involuntary. Voluntary employees choose to leave on their own, and involuntary employees are terminated. Characteristics that could affect turnover: education, area of specialization, age, geographic mobility, contacts at other hospitals, transportation, and economy. The goal is to reduce voluntary turnover, the amount of employees who choose to leave on their own. But if there is an increase in involuntary turnover, the organization needs to look at the way they recruit, select, and pick their employees. If an employee leaves their current position for another in the same hospital, it is not turnover, it's only considered lateral transfer. Turnover and absenteeism have been referred to as withdrawal behaviors because they allow an employee to leave the workplace. Now let's talk about the cost of staff turnover. This is a huge issue. Nurse turnover is a global concern that can have a significant impact on the financial performance of healthcare systems. Healthcare organizations have to spend money to replace the nurses who leave, and it costs money to advertise, recruit, and train new nursing employees. Roughly, a hospital can spend on average $856 million a year on hiring and firing nurses. Now let's look at a study that was done on nurse retention. The study was done at the Queen's Medical Center in Honolulu, Hawaii, because they were having difficulties retaining staff. They found that they had a shortage of nurses and it was only going to get worse in the future. They received a training grant, and one of their outcomes was to improve RN retention. Another outcome was improving patient outcomes. They did this by implementing the new Nurse Fellowship Program, Clinical Coaches, and the Nurse Managers Academy. They primarily focused on the first 12 months of employ. This is because in that time, that is when most employees choose to leave their organization. They did this by having cohorts for personal, cultural, and leadership development. Nurse managers also helped with training activities. They also focused on peer-to-peer accountability. They found the results of this study did show an improvement in their retention rate and vacancy rate. RN outcomes were also steadily improved. The year this study was done, the hospital roughly saved around $7 million. The key to nurse retention is job satisfaction. Now, factors that can affect this satisfaction: the shift that is worked, compensation level, relationships with nurse managers and other staff, equal distribution of rewards and punishments. Nurses must feel engaged with their organization. They must feel inspired by, willing to invest in, and likely to recommend. It's important for managers to encourage staff, provide feedback, and publicly recognize an employee's good performance. I'm also providing 2 videos that will be helpful to watch. The first one talks about how to stop losing your employees, and the second one is common causes of absenteeism. I'll provide the links on the blackboard. They're both about 1 to 2 minutes long. And that completes my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it.